what the wind blew in. Would you stand with us? Put your hands together. Heard an old story, how a Savior came from glory, how he gave his life on Calvary to save a wretch like me. And heard about his groaning, of his precious blood atoned me. Then I repented of my sin and won the victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me, I knew him, and all my love is to him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. I heard about his healing, of his cleansing power revealing, how he made the lame to walk again and caused the blind to see. And then I cried, dear Jesus, come and heal my against spirit. And somehow Jesus brought to me to brought the victory. Woo! Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me, I knew him, and all my love is to him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. Mr. Piano. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me, I knew him, and all my love is to him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood.
Woo, amen. There is some energy in this room, and I have a feeling it's probably has something to do with all these little ones in here. Little ones, at this time, you guys are dismissed to go to kids' church. You guys can make some noise as you're going out. Come on, kiddos. Woo! Well, I am Pastor Tara, bringing you guys this morning's announcements. If you guys are here maybe for the first time, just checking things out, you've been here for a while, we want to connect with you guys. If you look in the seats in front of you, we have our Connect cards. This is an opportunity for you guys to connect with us. If you have prayer requests, if you have needs, if you just want to reach out, we love to pray for you guys throughout the week. So go ahead and fill those out, turn them in on your way out. But the Connect cards are for you and for us to connect with you. Also, parents of little ones, if you are in the season of raising children, whether you're about to have a little one or you're trucking right along and through the high school years, we want to invite you guys to to come to our Fall Friendsgiving. This is happening on November 6th at 6 p.m. And this is just an opportunity for young families to get together, to bring our kids together, to just build a community of young families. We're going to be doing a bring your own dinner, kind of a hangout time, and then we're going to have an array of pies, all the pies you can dream of there. And again, we're going to sugar up those kids real well as well, and then send them back home with you. And then we're going to be watching Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, because why not? It's Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. So again, that is on Saturday, November 6th at 6 p.m. So I hope you guys will join us for that. And if you know some young families, invite them. This is a great opportunity for them to connect. We know that raising children is quite the season, and it definitely makes a difference when you have a team of families along with you. And then next, guys, if you see me holding this Operation Christmas Child box in my hand, some of you guys have already grabbed yours and snagged them. I heard we blew through them last week, but we have more out today. But OCC, Operation Christmas Child, it is a great opportunity as a family, as individuals, as small groups, just to get together and bless little ones all across the globe. You get to fill these boxes as much as you possibly stuff in there with goodies, necessities, some little toys and trinkets. And there's a whole list of what you can add in there. But it's a blessing to be able to do this. So I challenge you guys, if you haven't already grabbed one or a couple of them, grab those on the way out. The collection week is November 15th through the 22nd. They have to be in by then. And again, it's just really incredible. You can even track and find out where your package goes. So it can go on the other side of the world, and you can find out where in this nation or where in this world it's going to go, and be praying for that child. So it's such a great opportunity. And then lastly, you guys, right after this service, we want to invite you guys to just come and have lunch with us. We're going to be just doing a celebration Naz family lunch barbecue here happening inside the fellowship hall. And we'll explain more of that at the end, but I encourage you guys to stay, plan, and hang out with us and have some lunch and a time of fellowship. And for those of you who are watching online, if you want to brave the rain and drive on down here, we would love to have you guys for that time of fellowship. At this time, we're going to continue on in worship.
Did you know that we can have joy even when circumstances are bummer? Because our joy is found in the Lord and in His salvation that He gives us, and the hope that He brings that we will be with Him forever. And with that, we can face whatever we're going through, knowing that it's only momentary. God is with us. He's walking with us. He is there in our midst. We want to sing this morning. Would you stand with us again and lift your heart to the Lord?
There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. Oh, we shout out our praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. Oh, we shout out our praise. My God, He we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet, for we shout out our praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet, for we shout out our praise. Joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet, for we shout out our praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet, for we shout out our praise. Shout out our praise. We shout out our praise. Shout out our praise. We shout out our praise.
All right, come on, church. Let's make a joyful noise in here. I want to scream it out from every mountain top. Your goodness knows no bounds. Your goodness never stops. Your mercy follows me. Your kindness fills my life. Your love amazes me.
And I'll sing because you are good, and I'll dance because you are good, and I'll shout because you are good. You are good to me. Woo!
Nothing and no one comes anywhere close to you. The earth and oceans deep only reflect its truth. And in my darkest night, you shine as bright as day. Your love amazes me. And I'll sing because you are good, and I'll dance because you are good, and I'll shout because you are good. You are good to me. And I'll sing because you are good, and I'll dance because you are good, and I'll shout because you are good. You are good to me. With a cry of praise, my heart will proclaim. You are good. Sing it, church. You are good. In the sun or rain, my life celebrates. You are good. You are good. The cry of praise, my heart will proclaim. You are good. You are good. In the sun or rain, my life celebrates. You are good. You are good.
because you are good. You are good to me. I sing because you are good, and I dance because you are good, and I shout because you are good. You are good to me. Yeah.
Everybody find somebody you don't know around you and give them a fist bump.
Well, good morning. We've been praying for it was raining. Somebody called me. I don't normally pay attention to the weather. Somebody called me and said, you should look and maybe cover your wood and the hay outside. In California, it never rains, so I never believe it. My name is Pastor Austin. So excited you are here. Glad to have you with us this morning. I have been looking forward to seeing both services together, and I am excited you are here today. It is good to see all of you. Hopefully you meet somebody and you're like, hello. You may meet somebody that you say hello, and you just end there. No, you may meet somebody that you're like, I've never met you before, and you feel awkward because you're like, you didn't want to ask them, and they're like, I've been going to the church for 20 years. Still say hello, because maybe today's their first time here. I was on a vacation, and I call it vacation because this is a while back. We decided we used the word vacation because we left our kids at home. Those of you know what I'm talking about. We said we're going to take a real vacation. It was going to be the best vacation we'd ever had. That's what it was going to be. The kids weren't coming. It was just us. And my wife said before she left, and we both agreed, she said, you know what, no matter what, this trip, we get to, so it's going to be a great trip. Well, in about, a few hours in, I labeled this vacation as the worst trip we'd ever taken in our entire lives. I will tell you why. So we went to Florida, but I'm cheap. I'm really cheap. Flights to Florida were expensive, so I worked the system. I found out if we flew through Denver, we'd actually stay the night at a cheap hotel, or we could sleep outside. Amber got a bed. I didn't. It's okay. No, we didn't sleep outside. But we could stay there and save money versus flying all the way to Florida and break up the trip. We land in Denver. We're supposed to meet with some friends, to one of our formal students to do ice cream. We just needed to grab our bag. I think I have a picture of baggage claim. An hour and a half, 2 hours, still no luggage. It is 11:30 at night. Clock. It was a late plan. We were frustrated with each other. I was frustrated. I was frustrated. Just what is going on? The bags were not arriving. Scream is told the student that's there picks us up, takes us to our hotel, and we had to do for you in the morning. So it's about 12 something at night. So we go check in with the hotel. They have free shuttle to go to the airport. The key word is free. So we go to check into the hotel, get there, sign up for the free shuttle. They said, the problem is we can't get you to the airport. The earliest would be noon. I have never experienced this in my life. I'm like, it's the free shuttle. Normally, you don't even sign up. But I decided to ask. She said, we can get you there at noon. I said, well, our flight's at 7:30. She said, sorry, sir, did I tell you? We can get you there at noon. So we go through this deal, and I said, we'll just take an Uber. And she said, I don't want to really be the bearer of bad news, but Ubers have been very unreliable in Denver right now. She goes, you probably wouldn't make it. I said, what do you suggest? She goes, you probably wouldn't make it. So we are stuck. I decide we're going to go to the hotel down the road, which is a mile and a half down the road at 11 o'clock at night. Amber has called. She is, 7 months, 6 months pregnant. It is dark. Apparently there's not great sidewalks on the highway. So we walk with our luggage down there to the hotel that said they could take us to the airport. It's going to be great. We get there, and they have room for one on the shuttle. We asked them, I had her call them 5 times before we got there. So we come back to our hotel, a mile and a half back in the dark. This trip is great. We're on our way back. I get there, and the lady says, due to an error, we found room. We can get you to the airport. Oh, really? Let Amber go talk to her. So we get our room, we go to bed at 2-something. They pick us up, we leave for the airport at 4. Trip's going to be better from here. We land in Florida. Do you know how long it took them to get bags? There was lightning. Never saw it, but there was lightning. Over 3.5 hours, we sat at the airport in the area, and every carousel was empty. Amber and quickly, this trip got labeled again the worst trip in my entire life that I would never want to go on ever, 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 ever again. Amber said I was grumpy. I was not. I am frustrated. I am angry. And I had to remember, Amber said, she looked at me once and she said, I'm having a great time. I think I said, what trip are you on? I was planning on, I had already looked at tickets to go home. I said, when we get our bag, we're getting back on the plane because it'll take us that long to get home. She said, but I'm with you. Oh. I wish I could say I just softened up right there and was like, you're right, honey, this is great. No, I was frustrated, but she was right. I had forgot where or what the purpose of this trip was. We were just going to spend time together. That's all we wanted. I had forgotten all of that so quickly and mislabeled and made this trip into a horrible thing and tried to start that way right when we went there. I think I told the story 5 times before the day ended. Everybody asked, how's the trip going? Horrible. Bye. You're about to give me an hour. But we forget. Things come up. Anybody ever had unexpected things come up in their lives? Things that they weren't planning on? If not, let me help you out. Turn on the news. No. But over the past few weeks, we have been talking about hope is here and how God brings us hope in the face of a world that is hopeless. Sometimes things around us can feel scary, frustrating. They can mess up our plans. We can feel hurt, broken. Things can be taken away from us. Things can change. We get the phone call that changes everything, and things can just feel a mess when we begin to, and I said this over and over again, when we put our hope in the things of this world. When we forget where our hope comes from. When we forget that God is the only one who can bring us hope. So I want to share with you where we've been the last few weeks. The first week I said that Jesus brings hope when we are weary. He brings hope to the weary and the burdened. God brings us hope. We said that when in the passage, when Jesus talks about the analogy of using the oxen and the yoke, and we get to walk with Jesus, Jesus says, I want to take my yoke upon you. My burden is light. Anybody ever felt that life is heavy? Life is difficult? Life is hard? Stuff comes up. Jesus says he wants to walk with us. He wants to walk through you, walk with you. He wants to help carry the load. He cares about what you're going through. And week 2, we said Jesus brings hope to the broken. We talked about in John chapter 8, a woman who was caught in adultery, who he went up to her in the middle of her brokenness, in the middle of when she was caught in her sin, when the rest of the world said, hey, this is what the rule is. This is what we should do. We should be throwing stones at you. It's over. He turned the story upside down. He looked at her, and he looked at her in the face, and he said, I care. He said, everybody else is gone. Nobody has condemned you. He said, neither do I condemn you. But he said, hey, now go and sin no more. Good news is that Jesus brings hope to everyone. There is no place that we can be without hope. You cannot get in a hole that is so deep that you will not be able to find hope. Jesus will bring hope to you in your deepest, darkest place. He still says, my child, I love you. I care about you. I want to redeem you. And last week we said Jesus brings hope to the underdog. And we talked about David and Goliath. I think sometimes I said, we look at this story as everything that David did. He got up there, he grabbed those stones, he killed the giant, and we can leave when we read that passage and say, man, if I just train enough, if I read my Bible more, if I take over all this, I can overcome everything. See, the reality is, church, the story of David and Goliath is not about what David did. It's about what God did. It's about what God is doing. And we forget that when we take our eyes off the one that can accomplish everything in our midst. And today we're going to be closing up with Jesus brings hope to the doubter. There is hope even when we mislabel situations as hopeless. Anybody ever thought they were in a situation that was a no-win-win situation? You could not get out of it? This is such a mess. How can we come back from this? I don't see how it could get any better. Anybody ever thought that? There's only a few hands, but I think the whole church could raise their hands at that one. If we were honest. Jesus brings hope to the doubter. Maybe you're feeling like when Amber and I started our vacation, that what else could go wrong? Can there literally be anything else that could go wrong tomorrow or today? Could it even get any worse? Could life get any more frustrating? Could I get any more phone calls? All of this stuff that has happened, I think we can get to our place where we think that. We're doubting that there's nothing good left. That comes when we forget where the good comes from. When we forget and look towards the only one who can bring us true hope. You know what it would seem like a hopeless situation? I want you to put yourself in the disciples' shoes for a moment. This is, they're following Jesus around. They've been following him around for a while. This is the one who is supposed to conquer all pain. They wanted a Savior. You remember when he rode in on his triumphal entry? They wanted a guy that was going to be overthrowing the Roman Empire. They're going to take away everything. This was their new king. The disciples had been following him more closely than anybody. This is the king of the world, the Savior. And he was. He not only claimed to be, this is who he ended up being. But think about the moment they were in when all of a sudden they watched him be killed. They watched him nailed to a cross. I want you to think about, put yourself in their shoes for a moment. This is the end all to all solutions. This is what it's supposed to be. And they watch him nailed to the cross. They had to have been devastated. They had to have felt broken in this very moment. And Scripture tells us specifically about a guy who did not want to get his hopes up, who did not want to really be disappointed again. Anybody ever been there? Who didn't want to be let down one more time. His name is Thomas. When Thomas saw Jesus and the scars on his hands, he was finally filled with hope. Doubt is a pretty common occurrence in today's world. I think because of all the stuff we hear. There's new lingo that's been thrown out there of false misinformation, all this stuff that happens, and we hear this and it's not true. We're at the point in our lives where we don't believe anything we read. At least it's me. I don't believe much unless it's in that book right there. Because there's not much left that I can trust. Because, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened. And the next day I find out it didn't really happen. We lost hope in the things we read, and people begin to tell us things. So doubt is a real thing that I think people are going through. We're very doubtful in all of the things going on. Some people are at a place where they doubt that, could it really get any worse? They begin to doubt, is there really a God? Can he really stop this, all of this pain going on in my lives? Where am I going to be able to work the next day? Where am I going to be able to provide for my family? What am I going to have to do? Are we going to have to pack up and leave? Are we going to have to stay? How am I going to protect my children? These are real worries and fears that I think people are going through us right now. After Jesus died, the disciples are broken. They're discouraged. Because they thought the hope that they had of a new ruler and a new kingdom had all disappeared. They a little misinterpreted in what Jesus meant, but they thought it was all over. But that changed, church. Hope came back. Because they started hearing stories, and some of them saw Jesus resurrected. And they remembered where their hope came from. So in this final week today, I hope you can find hope, even in the midst of your doubts, even in the midst of your fears and your worries. You can turn your eyes back to Jesus. We're going to be in John chapter 20, starting at verse 24. Before I read this, will you pray with me? I pray that you would speak your and grace to us. Lord, more than anything, that as we read your word, you would help us with our unbelief. You would help us turn our eyes towards you. God, may every heart and ear and mind just be focused on the words you have for them this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh, they can't hear me online? Okay. I'm going to have two mics. Jimmy, shut the other one off? Yeah. Okay. They couldn't hear me online. So hello, online. I was not miming the whole time. We are in John 20, starting at verse 24, and it says, Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciple told him, We have seen the Lord. But he said to them, Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my fingers where the nails were and put my hands into his side, I will not believe. A week later, the disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, Peace be with you. When he said to then he said to Thomas, Put your fingers here. See my hands, reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop doubting and believe. Thomas said to him, My Lord and my God. And then Jesus told him, Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen, yet have believed. I think Thomas is one of my, the most favoritist, I don't know if that's a great English, but I told my wife I was my most favoritist apostle. He is, I really love his story, and I love who he was, because I feel like I can relate to him. He's super inquisitive, and he wants evidence of what happened. Anybody else? He wants to know. He says, why is this going on? What is happening? Where is Jesus? He wants to be able to go. But he's also, I think, one of the boldest apostles. If you look back at John 11, Jesus announced that he was going to Judea, and it's going to be dangerous. The other disciples and apostles tried to stop him. Thomas stood up and he said, let's go with him, that we could also die. I say I can relate to him, but I don't know if I was that far, to be honest. Everybody else is like, and he gets known as the doubter, everybody else is standing back, and here's Thomas. He said, let's go. Let's go with him. Let's walk alongside him. And most of us remember him as, what does he get labeled as? Doubting Thomas. He is the guy that doubted who Jesus was. He is the doubter. But when I've been rereading this passage over and over again, I think I determined that I think he was mislabeled. I don't think Thomas was a doubter. And there's some main things I think you can pull from this passage, but one of those is if you look at the original words that are used as you call him a doubter. The word doubt in the Greek there says to waver or to hesitate, to be uncertain, right? Doubt is holding a belief with hesitation and uncertainty. Doubt involves believing something with questions about whether or not it's true. But here's what Thomas said. Look what he said. It says, unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hands into his side, I will not believe. He didn't say he doubted. Thomas didn't believe. He was unsure. He did not believe. And he had some uncertainty or hesitation. I think he had a valid point when he was talking about that. Look at all that just happened. Look at everything going on. Thomas gets this bad rap in the church as some type of a skeptic, a grumpy old guy standing there in the corner going, doubt it. Nope, didn't happen. And he's the guy that when you bring him good news, it's always bad news. Nothing good is ever happening. That's the rap that I think sometimes Thomas gets. But if you look at the facts, he's a pretty honest guy. And I think he had a valid point for there. He watched his mentor of at least 3 years be brutally killed. Think about that for a moment. This is a guy he followed, be taken away. He knew what the manuscripts had said. He knew what he was told to do, and all of a sudden, the guy that he had followed is gone. He watched this happen with his own eyes. The idea of Jesus actually coming back in his mind, and I think for the rest of us, it defies logic, doesn't it? The idea of finding anything good in this situation doesn't make any sense. How could anything good come from this? What could happen? And he was probably doing what we all do. Anybody try to protect themselves from pain? From stuff? You don't want to get hurt again? You don't want to be let down one more time? So you're like, I'm not going to read the news anymore. Or like, I'm not going to turn it on. I don't want to get hurt again. I don't want to get my hopes up for something that's going to happen. Thomas says, I will not believe unless I see evidence in front of my eyes that I can see and touch. He's in a hurting place. Truthfully, a lot of us kind of walk that realm like Thomas, don't we? We fail to believe or we doubt something in order to protect ourselves. Because can God really answer our prayers? We ask that question. Could this really get any better? You're telling me tomorrow there could actually be good news. You're telling me it's not the end of whatever. You fill in the blank. We live like that. This is where Thomas is at. I mean, honestly, I think Thomas didn't want to believe because he didn't want to be let down. Sometimes we are so scared of having hope because I think we're worried that maybe God would let us down. I can tell you right now, God will never let you down. He will never fail you. But that's where our hearts go, and that's where our minds go sometimes. Think about it. What is the first thing you usually say when somebody tries to give you good news? Tell you something's happened. You're like the guy in the corner, a grumpy old guy. No. Can you believe what happened? You're like, no way. Somebody provides something. They help somebody out with something. They get a gift that they weren't expecting. Something comes up. That didn't happen. You know, you tell them that they're still able to do what they didn't think they were going to be able to do. No. Anybody else there? When you get good news, we're not like, when it's good, unbelievable news, we don't just step up and go, I knew it. I told you it was going to be great. I told you tomorrow was going to be a good day. That's not how we live sometimes, but I think that's how we should live. We don't live like that, though, do we? Sometimes we're skeptics. We're concerned. We're worried about what's going on. Just as when Amber told me on vacation, she said, oh my goodness, this is the best. I'm having a great time. My response to her was, are you nuts? Tell me how this is good. Have you seen all this stuff going on? I said, no way. I doubted it. I doubted that she was even, how could she find happiness in the middle of all this stuff going on? But she did. Sometimes we automatically take the path of doubt and unbelief. We get ourselves to a place where everything is bad. It's the opposite of those of you who have kids and have watched the Lego movie where it says everything is awesome. It's the opposite of that song. We only sing that song when we're angry and frustrated. We're like, everything is awesome. But we know it's not, so we just sing it with a grimace on our face. We're like, it's not. We're like, everything is a mess. We live that way sometimes. We get frustrated. We get grumpy. We get worried. We get angry. Hopefully I'm not describing you or your spouse or anybody around you, but we do. We're like, look at all this stuff going on. So Thomas declares and he refuses to believe the reports unless he sees it for himself. And then about a week later, they gather in the upper room and pick up at verse 26 again. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. And then he said to Thomas, put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe. Without explanation at all, Jesus shows up in a locked room, walks into the room, is there with them, and he is in the flesh. He is right there. The disciples are shocked. This is not a bad acting movie where they're like, oh, what happened? I mean, this is real life. They're sitting there here. Jesus walks into the room. They are panicked. I think there's a reason he says, peace be with you. There's a lot more meaning to that phrase. He says, it's okay. Put down your weapons. It's me. Don't worry. I'm not a ghost. All of those things. There's a lot of, we could go on and on about the things in there. Jesus walks into the room. And his first words are, don't be afraid. But then he speaks to Thomas, the doubter, right? The one who refused to believe. Did you notice how he addresses Thomas? He doesn't look at him and reprimand him first. He knew what he had done. He doesn't question him and say, look what you did. You didn't believe. He doesn't look at him and say, why you of little faith? He doesn't ask these questions to him right away. He doesn't ridicule him, but he invites him. He says, hey, Thomas, come on over here. Why don't you see for yourself? You notice what he does with the doubter? You notice the conversation with him? Church, he tells them to put his fingers where the scars are. Jesus is not afraid of your doubt. Did you hear me? Jesus is not afraid of your doubt, anybody else's doubt. It does not scare him. He is not concerned when you are worried about what's going on, because he knows the end of the story. But he's not worried and he's not frustrated when you are doubting. He wants to talk with you.
when we forget where hope is, he says, hey, Austin, look at me. Eyes on me. Anybody feel like they need that calling from Jesus every once in a while? Austin, what are you doing? I'm like, man, look over that. There's something burning. It is a mess. And Jesus is like, Austin, over here. And I'm like, have you seen this? I got to post and tell everybody how bad it is. Maybe they don't know how bad the gas prices are this week. I should let them know. I'll be the first one to tell them. I mean, it is bad. Should I post and let them know? Anybody else? We're like, I bet you people don't know how bad it is. And Jesus is like, Austin, get your eyes over here. And I'm like, but do you see this? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I want to do all these things, and I've done them before. I told somebody the other day, I said, the reason I don't post on social media at all is because I probably couldn't control what I say. I know my weaknesses. There is a lot of stuff that happens in this world, but Jesus says it's okay to doubt. He looks at him. I think if the church would respond a different way to those who were in disbelief or those who were hurting, think about how do we respond and how can we respond the same way that Jesus does? We have to listen to those who doubt. We have to be willing to hear their actual concerns and their fears. We have to actually sit down and give them the time of day. Because they're like Thomas. They're like, do you not see what just happened? We could say, the disciples, the rest of them, I don't know if they did. They could have just shut Thomas out and said, look at you. You don't believe. You're not a part of this group anymore. Look what you did. And Thomas is one of the guys who actually, they say he was one of the first evangelists, and all of India was saved because of him. God used him. Yet we call him the doubter. Can you imagine if we talked to the people and said, just listened, and said, where does your doubt come from? Where does your pain come from? A wise woman has told me over and over again, and I believe this statement so many times. She said, if something doesn't make sense, we probably don't have all the facts. Sometimes if we would sit down and listen to people's stories and hear their hurt and their pain, I think we'd have a lot more compassion and understanding. When we're like, why are you going through this? And we would sit down and just have that conversation. Say, where is your struggle? Where is your pain? Where is your hurt? You show me a church or a congregation that is willing to sit down and listen, and I believe that'll be a church that is willing to give hope to the hopeless. Way too often, we take the wrong road. We think it's the high road, and we're not willing to listen. And I'm not saying that we condone sin. I'm not saying that we do those things. That is not what I'm saying at all. Jesus was very clear on truth and grace. He told the woman, he said, now go and sin no more. But some of us aren't willing to walk up and have the conversation with those people because they're broken, or they're hurting, or they're doubting. Some of us ourselves are in that place. This can be draining and difficult to sit down with people. You know where church gets changed? When we begin to have relationships with people. One of the things I was excited about here for you to meet people at the church who maybe you don't know, because there are hurting people in this room. I've said that before, and you may not believe it. Look at all of them. I don't know, it's me. If you don't see anybody else, it's me. I am hurting. We need people to come up to us and say, how are you? What's going on? We need people to invite us, not just me, those around us, to coffee, to give phone calls, to sit down, to reach out to our neighbors and those around us. The world is feeling the same way. Church, that has to be what we're doing, but I can tell you, it's difficult to sit down with people and to hear their pains. It can be draining, but we have to empathize and express compassion still, church. We have to empathize and express compassion. When we let ourselves feel the hurt of those around us, man, you'll know why they're hurting then. When you sit down and you hear their story and you'll say, I had no idea. I had no idea that's why you wouldn't do that. You would never join a group. I had no idea that's why you weren't able to come to church. I had no idea that this was going on. You fill in the blank. when we sit down and take the time to listen and care. That's what Jesus did with Thomas here, which is what I love. We have to be able to empathize, feel their pains, hear their hurts and their burdens, as Jesus does for every one of us. Jesus was not afraid of Thomas's doubt, church. It did not scare him for 1 minute. When we approach doubt and sit down, even if we don't have all the answers, you may not know this. I don't have all the answers. Please don't tell my wife that. I tell her I'm usually right. It's an evil gift. It does not help when you are right. Sometimes you wish you were wrong, trust me, especially in a marriage. Yeah, it's a no win-win situation sometimes. But it's okay to say I don't know. It's okay to say I don't understand. We don't have to run from people's doubts and fears. Because when we sit down and have conversation with people about their doubts, when we listen and we have compassion, people can go from being a people full of doubt to a people full of hope. Because we point them to the empty cross. We point them to the only thing that can bring them hope. Because the answer sometimes is, yeah, you're right, it's a mess. But I don't have anywhere else to point you. And I think that's where Jesus wants to bring every single one of us. To our knees where we're said, yeah, there is no other place to find hope except for here. Right there at the empty cross. Jesus was not afraid of Thomas's doubts. Let's pick up at verse 28. Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." This is what Thomas needed. He needed to see and touch and feel that Jesus was real, that he actually did overcome death, that this actually happened. I think Thomas went from, at this moment, the disciple who did not believe to all of a sudden the disciple who believed but also made the greatest, truest claim. I mean, think about it. Now he's the guy who said, I've touched him. I know those were real scars. I know, I saw it. His entire identity changed in this moment when Jesus walked with him in his doubt. Now he became somebody different. Jesus recognizes Thomas' faith, and he said, because you have seen, you have believed. And then, you know who he turns it around and talks about? Guess who he talks about next? Us. He's talking about us. He's talking about us in this last verse. He said, blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed. That's us. We get to go on what Thomas said, that he actually was there, that he saw it. Thomas had first-hand evidence that came directly from the source. This caused his doubts to melt away. Church, our doubts turn to hope when we go directly to the source and find that Jesus is trustworthy. You want to stop being doubtful, unhopeful? You can only go to the source. I've told you that over and over again. We're not going to be able to find hope anywhere if you don't turn your eyes towards Jesus. Because you're going to wake up and tomorrow Facebook is going to tell you some other bad news. And it may even be false information. I don't know. It's true, though. This is what happens every day. We get discouraged every time something happens because we take our eyes. Jesus says, hey, Austin, look at me. Look at me. I know this is tough. I know this is hard. I know all this is going on. He says, turn your eyes towards me. Scripture's full of first-hand accounts of the resurrection and the testimonies of all the people around. Calling Thomas a doubter implies that doubt is opposed to faith. Saying that he's a doubter implies that doubt is opposed to faith. Remember what he said? Remember what I said at the beginning? Doubt involves believing something. Even if you do have some questions or some uncertainty. right before Jesus ascended, you can pick up in Matthew 28, it talks about all the disciples worshiping Jesus, but it says some doubted. Uses the word some. Disciples did believe that Jesus had risen from the grave, but still some doubted. If the disciples who saw Jesus be resurrected from the grave had some doubts, did you know that we are probably going to have some doubts sometimes? I do not feel guilty or ashamed to stand up and say, I have doubts some days that what's going on. I turn my eyes sometimes because I get distracted by all the stuff going on. I'm comforted in that fact. These are the disciples who saw what happened, and very quickly they're like, oh no. I think some people look at him and say, how could the disciples do that? What's wrong with these guys? They saw him raised from the dead. I think it's because they're human. Humans make mistakes. Humans forget where to keep our eyes. We turn our eyes to all the bad things versus the good. Church, we look for good in the wrong places. There's only one place to find good. I didn't say the good things, I said the good. All good things come from God. Thomas found it hard to believe. He struggled with that. I want to play you a clip of, this is a first-hand perspective of what maybe Thomas would have said about how he would have identified himself. This is the guy that would have been the doubters. I think if Thomas was interviewed in today's world, I think this is maybe what he would have said.
I remember the first time somebody called me a disciple of Jesus. Yeah, disciple. Had a nice ring to it. It felt strong. You realized you were a part of something much bigger than yourself. Sometimes it was really, really tough. See, I can't begin to describe just how disorienting things were back then. I mean, one minute Jesus is telling you about the gift of life, and the next minute it seems like he's just going to let us drown in the middle of the sea. Spoiler alert, we didn't drown. It sure seemed like we were going to. Looking back on it, I realized that Jesus didn't waste a moment. I mean, he was always showing us that he was who he said he was. Which, I know, begs the question, how can we doubt him? Yeah, I tend to be the one that gets asked that more than anybody because for some reason, doubter has been connected with my name. For the record, I wasn't the only one who doubted. It's just, I wasn't there the day that Jesus appeared to everyone else. I was gone. And so I didn't, look, the finality of death, it has a choking grip on all of us. And on that day that Jesus was crucified, when death swallowed him up, and then there was the day that they showed me his hands and the scars. And he said, Thomas, you believe because you see. But there's going to be people who believe who don't see. And that night changed everything. I mean, I was still a disciple, but now I was an apostle. Sent to share the good news, to tell a story. You know, there's another word. Started with a few of us, began to spread. think it's the best word of all. It says everything that needs to be said because we realize it wasn't about how well we believed. It was about who we believed in. Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Yeah, from that moment on, we were called believers.
Did you catch that? It wasn't about how well we believed. It was about who we believed in. We think that belief requires certainty sometimes. That means we can't have doubts or questions, and those they could just become, honestly, they could be paralyzing. Bring you to a point of brokenness. The Bible does not teach that certainty is required for faith. Look at Jude 22. It says, "And have mercy on those who doubt." Who are unsure, who are fearful, who are worried. That is the posture that we should be taking. We should have compassion. We should extend grace. We should be good listeners. You know what a good listener takes to do? There's not really much more to say except for close your mouth. Sit down. It means I don't have the answers. Just to sit down and have a listening ear. I think sometimes we aren't, as a church in general, I don't know if we get those labels. I was looking through some of the labels that the church has been labeled with over the past. Holier than thou, bigots, homophobes, Bible thumpers, judgmental. I think sometimes it feels like we are at the tipping point of our culture, that the world is so divisive, more divisive than it ever has been, and we get so frustrated and so hurt, we are so focused on defending our religious rights and our freedom and parenting our children and our jobs and all of this stuff going on and defending our everything there. It's not a time to run back and hide, church. Don't take that. It's not a time to just bow down and not stand up for what you believe. But it is a time to remember when you are fighting and you are worried and you are fearful and all this stuff's going on, is everybody else needs hope too. If you think it's bad, they think it's bad, and they don't know about the cross. Think about that. We have to be a people that point people back to where hope is. Yes, we need to defend our faith, but we need to tell people why they need faith at the same time. Those have to go together. They need us to walk with them. 2 Peter, I think this is 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 5 through 7. I think this is how the church should be labeled. I wish we were called things like this. It says, don't lose a minute in building on what you've been given, complementing your basic faith with good character, spiritual understanding, alert discipline, passionate patience, reverent wonder, warm friendliness, and generous love, each dimension fitting into the developing of others. Can you imagine if this is how the church was labeled? If Christians were labeled with, and it doesn't, if you continue to read, it doesn't just say a couple of these, it says all of them. It doesn't say pick your favorites. If we were labeled with good character, spiritual understanding, alert discipline, passionate patience, reverent wonder, warm friendliness, and generous love. How much more would people be able to see Jesus around us? Sometimes I think we as Christians are way too often seen as, we're supposed to be the ones with hope. Somebody said the other day, I watched a pastor, and he said, we're supposed to be the most hopeful people. But if you look at Christians' posts and things they're saying, they are fearful and broken right now and angry. And the non-believing world is fearful and broken and angry, and they're like, y'all got hope, but that doesn't look hopeful. They said, you look more worried than I am. Think about that. We're supposed to be the one pointing to hope. You know what? I am completely aware that things are bad. I know the world is a mess. But you know who knows better than I do? Jesus. You know who knew all this was going to happen and was going to give me strength to walk through it? Jesus. The hurting world, those who don't know Jesus, we have to give them a reason to want to know him. We have to give them a reason. Our lives can literally be a first-hand witness to why people can find hope. Just like Thomas. When people are so worried, this is the moment, church, that God has placed us in. He is not unaware. We are here because God placed us in this moment. On your way in today, you were given the elements. If you weren't, I'm going to have a couple of my ushers or greeting team gather some of those. But as our church, the only thing we require is that you're a believer in Jesus to take communion. If you're new to the Christian faith, that's okay. There is no judgment. But as we take communion together this morning, we're going to do things a little differently because when you go to partake in the elements, we have the wafer here which represents the broken body of Jesus. It's a meal he shared with his disciples. And the juice underneath represents the blood of his new covenant poured out when he died on the cross for each and every one of us. I want to read a passage, and I want you to reflect on where the disciples were in the middle of this hopeless moment. And the band, they're just going to sing a chorus in a moment. But as they do that, we're not going to partake in communion all at the same time together. I want you to just have a moment with Jesus. They're not going to sing long. And maybe if you can't do it here, I want you to do it on your way home. But I want you to just reflect on that hope, that what happened in that cross. And I want you to just for a moment, when you are ready, partake in those elements. Take time and remember where your hope comes from. After all the beatings and Jesus knew he was going to have a painful death, in Matthew 26, it says this. It says, while they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, take and eat, this is my body. Then he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, poured out for many. Jesus, just in these moments as we close, but as we reflect on these words, God, I pray that as we each, as individuals, partake in these elements, they'd remember where our hope comes from. In Jesus' name, amen. So when you're ready, as they sing, just reflect on your Savior. Reflect where your hope truly does come from.
He became sin who knew no sin, that we may become his righteousness. He humbled himself and carried the cross. trembled and the veil was torn. Love so amazing. Love so amazing. Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel. He's the rescue for sinners, the ransom from heaven. Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. Jesus Messiah, you're the Lord, Lord of all.
When Jesus is our source of hope, we don't have to be crippled by doubt and fear, church. When he is the one who brings true hope, we don't have to be worried about all that's going on. When we keep our eyes on the cross. I want to close with this story. A gentleman named Robert Louis Stevenson was a novelist in the 20th century, and he wrote about one of his excursions, and maybe you've heard this before. In the South Island Seas, the ship encountered a terrible storm. It was a mess. It was about ready to break apart. The passengers and some of the crew are down below, and they are frightened and worried, and everything is a mess. Anybody ever been there? And it's just getting thrashed. They're worried. They're doubtful. They don't know what's going to happen. One of the men finally ventured up to the top to go find up top and see the wind and the rain and everything going up, and he sees the captain just pacing back and forth on the bridge. He sees him standing there, just walking around, telling orders of what to do to keep the ship safe and all of that, and he goes back downstairs. And when he saw the captain, he said he had a tranquil and undisturbed face. And he went back down together, and all the people questioned, "What did you see? What was going on? How is everything?" And you know what he said? He said, "I have seen the captain's face, and all is well." He said he's not worried. Church, Jesus is not worried about everything going on. Did you know that? When we walk out of here and you go, "Oh my goodness, did you hear what happened? Gas prices went up another $12. Shouldn't tell you, but it did. Just in the last 10 minutes. No, we don't have to be worried because we have seen the end story. We know who wins the battle. When we look him in the face, even when our family members are sick, even when we walk in and say, "Am I going to be able to have a job?" Even when we're worried and all this stuff is going on, you can run and hide and you can do whatever you want to do to try and run from the pain and all of this stuff going on. But if you don't turn your eyes toward Jesus, you're never going to say, "It's going to be good." We have to be a people that is celebrating. We have to be a place where hope is here because our eyes are on the cross. We have to be a people that's labeled that we are hopeful because we know the good. And church, that means we can celebrate what God is doing in our lives. That means today is a good day. Look at your neighbor and say, "Today is a good day." Now make it a little more enthusiastic. Tell them it's a great day. It's a great day when our eyes are on the cross. Will you stand with me, church? Let's sing this closing song, but with the reality that Jesus has won the battle. And today is a great day because of who he is. I don't know about you, but I am thankful that Jesus looks at us and says, hey, I know you're doubting. I know this is world a mess, but he says, hey, eyes on me. I win the battle. Aren't you excited about that, church? Let's sing these words together.
I am chosen and I am free. I am living for eternity. Free now forever. You pick me up, turn me around, set my feet on solid ground. Yours now forever. And nothing's gonna hold me back. No, nothing's gonna hold me back. And nothing's gonna hold me back. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I'm alive to live for you. I'm alive to live for you. Amazing love, how can it be? You gave everything for me. You gave everything for me. Everything. Wash my sin, shake away. The slate is clean, brand new. Free now forever. No holy eye, it's your throne. This crown, the Christ my own. Yours now forever. And nothing's gonna hold me back. And nothing's gonna hold me back. No, nothing's gonna hold me back. Here we go. My chains fell off, my heart was free. Woo! I'm alive to live for you. I'm alive to live for you. Amazing love, how can it be? You gave everything for me. You gave everything for me. And I'm free to live. I'm free to give. I'm free to be. I'm free to love you. Free to live. Free to give. Free to be. I'm free to love you. Free to live. I'm free to give. I'm free to be. I'm free to love you, Lord. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I'm alive to live for you. I'm alive to live for you. Amazing love, how can it be? You gave everything for me. You gave everything for me. Woo!
Your face. Aren't you excited about that? Give one more round of applause for Jesus before you move. I know some of you are going to be like, you can't change it up on me, Austin. Okay, everybody take a quick seat. I got 20 more minutes. I'm kidding about 20 more minutes, but take a quick seat Going to give you some instructions real quick. So, I hope, and if you're unable, you better have a great excuse. I hope you are able to stay for our lunch today. We would love to have you, but in order to make things go smoothly and not just have everybody line up in the hallway, I'm going to dismiss a couple groups, and one of those, the first group, will be those that are unable to stay, but I'm not going to have you leave right now because I'm going to dismiss other people with them. I've got some, not going to, those of you that are no. We've got, so I want in a moment, my families with children. I'm going to have some of my, if you're staying for the lunch and you're going to pick up kids, whether you're a grandparent, you have kids in the children's department, step back. Can we bring up the house lights a little bit? One of our ushers will be in the back. Ushers, if you kind of hang it over here and just kind of hand people, the families that are staying or people that are staying, grab them a name tag. We'd love for you to fill out a name tag if you're at lunch today. And then those of you that are unable to stay, the rest of you, if you're in here, we got some stuff we're going to start dismissing people, make sure the line's not all backed up. So if you have a kid in the children's department or you've got other plans and you were unable to stay, head on out. You are dismissed. The rest of you, there's going to be name tags coming around. So thankful. Look forward to having you back next week. But if you have a kid in the children's department, make sure you grab your kid out of the fun zone, the 2s and 3s first. So the rest of you in here, after our ushers get done, there's going to be name tags coming around. If you're staying for lunch, I would love to have a name tag somewhere on your person. Then we're going to have some instructions for you, and we're going to be dismissing by group very shortly.